What's up, Earthlings? Yes, I have unleashed the face ferret. Hey, at least now I can see my neck gains. Before I reveal my answers for what limits muscle growth in the long term, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think the two biggest limitations for long-term muscle growth are? Go ahead, I'll wait.
I accidentally deleted the clip of me revealing the first one. It is injury management, or in other words, staying healthy.
Most studies seem to put injury rates at around 2 to 3 to 4 per 1,000 hours, with powerlifting being a little bit above bodybuilding, which makes sense because it's a little bit heavier weights. And that means that if you spend 10 hours per week in the gym, which is quite a lot, that's 520 hours per year, and you would look at maybe 1 to 2 injuries in that time frame. I would say that injury is, to a certain extent, inevitable. If I took a theater and I filled it full of 1,000 men who got close to their genetic natural muscular potential, and I said,
Spartans! What is your profession?
Gains! Brothers, brethren, how many of thou hast never had an injury? You would not see a lot of hands. And so if you're a passionate, driven, aggressive individual trying to push towards a goal, injury is probably going to happen. The key is to manage it.
Let's go. Do you think getting injured at some point is inevitable if your goal is to reach your maximum strength level? Yes.
I conducted a poll. 24% of people had never had an injury, 47% had had 1 to 2 injuries, 22% had had 3 to 6 injuries, 5% of people have had 7 to 15 injuries, and 2% of people have had more than 16 injuries. I'm sure a lot of people, especially beginners, are looking at this 7 to 15 and 16 plus group and thinking,
what the actual fuck have I gotten myself into?
But it's not that bad because you have to realize the vast majority of injuries heal very, very quickly. In a couple of weeks, most of them are just completely gone. At the most, usually it's a couple of months.
First time.
And I look at injuries as your body showing a weak point. And I think this is a much more positive and constructive way of looking at injuries. It's not vilifying them. It's not, catastrophizing them as a lot of people do. A lot of people in this comment section were like, yeah, I snapped my shit up deadlifting with poor form, and then I didn't deadlift for a few years afterwards. And this is a bit like saying I got robbed at gunpoint when walking down the street, and so now I just stay at home all the time. So you have to accept that injuries are a potential risk that you incur when training, especially when you're doing the type of training to maximize your strength or to maximize your physique. It's part of the game. What you want to do is listen to your body and try to manage this risk as best you can. So don't go walking through a bad neighborhood at night. Take a safer route. Most injuries, once you get to know and you've been training for a few years, you can see them coming and you can work around them in advance. Most people look back at their first few years of training when they're more advanced and they think, yeah, I could have done things a lot more intelligently and better. If something hurts, it's worth paying attention to. Not necessarily worth changing everything just because you get a little bit of pain, but you should be cognizant and aware of it.
By the way, you can also err too far on the side of caution. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the gym and, I had a little bit of a sore lower back or a knee or a shoulder or an elbow or something else. And I was like, I don't know. And I warmed up. 30 minutes later, I'm crushing PRs. That's not an injury. And sometimes people think something is way worse than it actually is. At least give the workout a shot to be successful.
And especially if something is getting worse during a session, you're better off just stopping. Okay, I've had times where it hurt a little bit, and then I got worse, and then I got worse, but I was like, no, this isn't happening. I can still keep pushing. Doesn't end well in that case. On the other hand, if something is getting better during a session and you feel better when you're warmed up, it's probably okay. And technique is important, but I think some people put too much weight on this. You can have perfect technique and still get injured. Or you can have technique that doesn't look textbook and yet be completely fine. I think it's more about load management, progression, fatigue management, that kind of thing, over just how an exercise looks. Greg Nuckols has a really, really good article about this on his site. I will link it in the description down below. But you can see here, training age and probability of acute injury are very, very correlated. And men typically have a higher rate of injury compared to women. This is partly because men are just stronger in general, but also because men do more dumb shit. And so injury management is the first factor. I have a whole playlist on injury and recovery. I will link that in a card if I can, and then in the description below as well. The second factor, showing up. Yeah, just consistently going to the gym. By now I've worked with like 600 or 700 people, and I see often very large gaps in their training history. So, 2012 to 2013 I was doing this. 2014, I didn't do anything.
Is he asleep?
No. I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Then I started again in 2015. 2016, I didn't do anything. Then I started again, and you have this roller coaster in their training history. This is not good for progress at all. And yes, according to the data, according to science, you don't lose muscle mass very quickly. It's not like you take a couple weeks off and you lose a whole bunch of gains. You might lose a little bit in 2 weeks, but not very much at all. However, you're losing work capacity, you're losing the ability to tolerate training. It's going to take a few weeks to get back to where you were in most cases. Almost certainly lose strength in 2 weeks just because you're not used to the movements, and at that point, you're starting to unadapt to training. Some people might be able to hit a PR after 2 weeks, but you're still losing a lot of momentum, and you're basically stopping training and then you're still able to perform, but again, you've lost a lot of that work capacity and you're sort of going backwards without even actually realizing it. You're peaking your strength, but you're losing your base. And just looking around at the guys who are maximizing their physiques, consistency is something that is almost unanimous. Almost all of them make it a priority and they show up week after week after week. They might take a week or two off 1 or 2 times per year, but apart from that, they are in the gym. So I urge you to do whatever it takes to keep showing up. Know thyself. The perfect, hardcore, high volume, perfect exercise selection training plan doesn't mean much if you fall off the wagon every few weeks or even every few months. This is not a finite game. This is an infinite game where you have to have never-ending goals and you have to keep showing up consistently. Add some variety into your training. If you have my book, you have hundreds of exercises at your disposal. If you think you're going to maximize your lean body mass, your physique, with only squat, bench, deadlift, have fun. You're going to break way before that point. Even powerlifters add in accessory movements because they know that they can't distribute all of their volume to only the specific lifts. It's just not really sustainable. Read about training. Talk to people about training. Experiment with your training. Try new things. Whatever it takes to keep that process processing. And you can rely on discipline and dedication and willpower.
See, I was wrong to expect Sparta's commitment to at least match our own.
But I would say the vision and the passion and the habits are going to be much more sustainable. Compare yourself to other lifters. This can get carried away and it can definitely go negative at times. Don't compare yourself to lifters on performance-enhancing drugs or steroids or anything else, obviously. That's just dumb. But you can compare yourself to other lifters. This can be very, very motivational for some people. In my Excel sheet, where I keep all my training logs and everything, I have my own measurements for, arm and chest and thighs and whatnot. And then I also have Steve Reeves, Reg Parks, John Grimmick, and even Frank Zane, actually. Obviously, that's just dumb, because this motivates me. Seeing myself getting closer to those numbers over time and coming, within an inch or so of their numbers, to me, is extremely motivating. In summary, stay healthy, or at least as healthy as you possibly can, through managing the nearly inevitable injuries, and then keep showing up. Those two things are going to be by far the two most important factors when it comes to maximizing your physique. It's not a magic exercise or a rep range, it's the process. If you're interested in maximizing that process, my book will definitely help with the finer details. It's 200 pages, 66,000 words, and it's still just $15, but that will definitely go up in the near future because I'm not sure why I priced it so low. All right, that is all for this video. Like, subscribe, share, slap around that notification bell thing icon as well, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.